Yeah, so my concern with this bill is that it seems overbroad. A lot of this has been, I'll try not to reiterate things that have already been covered in depth, but just from a layperson's view, I'm worried about a few things here that seem like they would cast too wide a net and have a definite chilling effect on people's First Amendment rights. So one concern that I have is about some of the language, like exactly what you mean by gas mask or similar device. There's some words in here like filter all air and like would protect, and it is concerning to me that things that steps people might take to protect themselves from inadvertent exposure to pepper spray and things like that would be criminalized. A lot of people that come to protests are coming to protest, in particular these protests against white nationalists, are coming because they come from a population that is disadvantaged in some way and is judged to be like unfit, or like the whole program of the white nationalists is that like there's a set of people that are like real people and everyone else should be disadvantaged or exterminated, depending on the boldness of the claims. That means that a lot of the people that come to these protests are going to be from one of those populations. People in my family have respiratory, have asthma, things like that can be affected by this. And I think that there's a lot of evidence of the use of those chemicals getting out of control at protests and affecting a wider set of the people than maybe was originally intended. So I think that this is disenfranchising a set of the population from being able to protest with any expectation of safety, even if they come with a intent for nonviolence. The question about the masks and disguises seems like it hinges on specific intent, and like that seems very problematic to like definitively establish, but it seems like a thing that could really be expanded to like suit the needs of a prosecutor. And there is another component of this which is about like, and again, like I don't understand the structure of this well enough. I can't tell if like 3B is under some of these other things or not, but it's talking about is engaged in conduct prohibited by law. And I think that there's some probably pretty large, people would agree that like throwing rocks is like across a line. But one of the things that happens at these protests is it goes from a lawful assembly to an unlawful assembly very quickly and arbitrarily. And behavior that, if I'm reading this correctly, is fine before that point suddenly becomes subject to up to 1 year in 1 year imprisonment and $1,000. So there's just a lot of. It seems like there's a lot of potential for abuse, intentional or unintentional, in this as it's written. People have talked about the doxing component far more eloquently than I could. I just want to address one last thing about the sort of like both sides of this issue. I believe the intent of the sponsor that this is not meant to target one specific subset of the population, but I do have concerns about how intent plays out in reality. Like, intent, I didn't intend to kill that person, like you still have penalties. Like that is not a get out of jail free card. And I think that there is a significant potential that even though the original intent of this bill was not to chill free speech or to disenfranchise people, that it has enormous potential to do so. The stated need for this is that it is about keeping the peace, about de-escalation, and sheltering fascists who are calling for the abuse of or murder of a subset of the population that's not a like neutral situation. That is not a place where, let's just hear them out. And like they should be able to do that, and we are okay with making it harder for people to come out and protest that. That seems really problematic. As far as the this protective equipment, and I mean, that ranges from like, I can understand the idea of like coming to a protest with a riot helmet sort of sends a certain signal, but coming to a protest with a bandana to be able to keep dust or pepper spray out of your mouth. Like that seems like another part of the spectrum, and they are all grouped together here. And I think that as far as the, like, this is a statement of, this is a thing where the police feel endangered or unable to keep the peace. I think other people have addressed the, like, you know, when 10 riot cops wade into the crowd, like, a mask is not a significant impediment to their job. And you can tell that they don't care about this, that this is not a significant impediment to their job, because the people that come tooled up to these protests are not the anti-fascists. It is the Proud Boys. They do come dressed for battle. They are there. They are talking ahead of time about how they're going to, like, break some skulls. They are coming specifically to instigate violence. Anti-fascists show up and put their bodies on the line to protect marginalized members of the community. In some cases, they may wear some casual equipment, but it's, you know, the police are facing the people who are wearing, like, T-shirts over their faces, and they have their backs to the people that are wearing riot shields and body armor on their limbs. Like, they've got steel-toed boots. You know, they're there specifically to cause harm. And the police do not, in my experience, the police have not seemed overly concerned about that. They don't put their bodies between those people and the protesters. They are protecting those people that are all tooled up until they are successful in instigating, instigating a fight. I was standing in the crowd when the Tiny decided that he'd been offended enough that he could start throwing punches, and the police could have easily headed that off with a better protest design, like a better layout for that protest. And it didn't come down to the equipment of who was wearing what. I think that I appreciate Representative Knight. I think that you have had a lot of, I think that you've taken a very measured approach to, like, hey, this is a complicated situation, and I really appreciate that. I heard your point about the really bad police behavior has been happening in other communities elsewhere in the country, and that we have not to date had a. I know some individuals that might take issue with that, but I would agree generally.
Wyatt aside, right?
I would agree generally
that
that has largely been a problem that has been elsewhere to date. But the thing is that, like, people that are going to abuse their authority don't come with labels, and people that come to a protest don't know how to interpret somebody who is, like, 6'5" and dressed in riot gear. Like, that is a very intimidating situation, and it's very hard to read. I think it's purposefully hard to read. The masks cover the faces, name badges are covered. Like, that is a very intimidating situation, and I think that expecting people that are exercising their First Amendment rights to, like, put all of that faith forward, I think that's a big ask. So I would ask you to weigh that when you're thinking about this. I think that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
I just want to say, first time up?
Yeah.
Really good job. Thank you.
Thank you.